So, good morning, everybody. It is an early morning because, there was a change in the force. There was a frequency shift that I didn't even hear because it's not like I'm not in tune, but I know there's a lot going on, and my husband's been home too in the morning because he had to do some stuff with his new role in his job right now. And so, I'm up and down in the middle of the night. And so if I hear I'm sure I might have I'm sure I might have, but I'm so used to it now. But wow, look at that. Look at that freaking hive right there. But I'm so used to it now that I don't even hear it. So when he wakes up, like he did the other day, waking up with backache, and I'm waking up with freaking hives, I'm like, okay, it's not the bed, it's not whatever, it's a fucking frequency shift causing, then yes, itchies, okay? And I do have a back scratcher, I just don't want to rip my back up. But right now there is this huge hive that was smaller, and now it's getting bigger and bigger right now. I'm like, holy crap. Okay, this is what my curse is going to be. I'd rather be itchy and feel good and releasing all that histamine stuff than be in pain. But right now, we're in a crazy ass climate shift. It's going to get hotter. Tomorrow's supposed to be over 100 here in Ohio. Over 100. And so the building up of the heat is what causes the growth and the pain. And now it's coming out in, for me, skin condition, because I have the skin is the largest organ. And so I have the most open system. So not only is my alimentary canal open, but my skin is allowed to express what it needs so it can survive, so I can survive. Okay. And so what are we going to talk about today? Oh, a lot of stuff. All right. So the main points of today is mothers have been trained to disable their family's immune system through antihistamines and also to cause trauma through surgeries and other types of invasive procedures. Okay, so when you're a mother in this society, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. Even when your mother is telling you how to do stuff, you have no idea what you're doing. So then you're forced to go and ask a professional for help. And when you're forced to go ask a professional for help, you're just following orders. You have absolutely no idea what you're doing. And that's pretty much all the population out there that has children. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. And so they're giving away their kids to science, whether it's to a homeopathic holistic science professional, or it's someone who is in the allopathic science field. And so women and mothers have been trained to destroy themselves over time. When women and mothers destroy themselves, the men are to follow behind. That's why it's going to take a woman to redirect her, not only her family, but even potentially her community, if she's allowed to even speak. What do I mean by if she's allowed to speak? Well, some women have allowed their friends and family to muzzle them. And so she's not allowed to speak, because if she speaks, they will excommunicate her. They will freeze her out. They will bully her until she shuts up. That's why women are in jail. They develop that jail around themselves. They build themselves around a surveillance society because her friends and family and associations make sure that she stays in line with the party line. And so that's why the men are to follow close behind unless the woman figures out when to wake the fuck up. And most men out there are not willing to wake up. They have too much investment in the social capital, in all of the image and the power when it comes to sexuality. Most women who have kids, if not all women who have kids, have been bred to be the destroyer after they became the purveyor of life. And then they're bred to be the destroyer. And so that's what the whole Van Helsing was trying to show you, is that the woman, Vanessa, was fighting herself. She was fighting the darkness. And many women and mothers have a darkness within. Until they're willing to fight the darkness and allow life to flourish, not keep attacking it, she will take down everyone around her, and her family, and her children, and her friends, and her associations. And she will be allowed to do that. She will be allowed to do that. No one will get in the way of her destroying what she has produced in this world and what she has cultivated in this world. And so that's why the whole J world is not only setting you free from the medical holistic energy healing world, but also redefining the roles of women, because they are the most powerful creatures who have the ability to bring life and to also destroy life. Look at your fucking Facebook. Look at the women promoting the supplements and the antibiotics and the refusal to change and evolve. Why? Because she's still stuck in the chain of image and baubles and sexuality. So if a woman had no kids, who could she be? Women can't even answer that. They can't even fathom not having children or not having to take care of someone or something. So if it's not a child, they have a million fucking animals. A million animals around them that will die and reproduce. And she will encourage that. And she will keep bringing in animals if she can't have kids to keep cannibalizing the energy. Why? Because she's deficient somewhere. That's filling in the hole for her. The animals are. So I'm saying, you're in a society that is like, so, it is so stuck on addiction to cannibalizing creatures, whether it's a child, friends and family, or animals in your vicinity. And when I was studying the stuff about the Illuminati way back when, around the MK Ultra and the diamond programming, some of these girls like in Hollywood, like say Paris Hilton, they're always carrying little doggies around with them. Little doggies. Maybe they have them for 20 years, maybe they have them for 5 years. But that doggie is a symbol of control of that woman, because she has now grown so attached to that little sidekick that anything happens to that dog or anything else that she is emotionally attached to, if she doesn't fall in line, that little animal or whatever it is she's emotionally attached to could be compromised. And so when you love something like a child or an animal and someone is threatening its existence if you don't fall in line, that's a type of control mechanism that not only carries out in the Illuminati world with all those diamond programming MK Ultra victims, but also your friends and family. Because they'll call the ASPCA on you, they'll call the CPS on you, and you're not doing anything harmful to your child. You're just giving your child, food, a little bit of salt. But people, and we know people have done horrible things out there too. So I'm not saying that it's not right to call, but that's what I'm saying, is that's how we have built in a surveillance as well as a control mechanism of the fear of somebody taking away something you are so emotionally attached to. And that includes your child, your animal, or anyone that's dependent on you, that you have become so accustomed to depending on for energy. When someone takes away your food, people fall in line. And for mothers, the children and the animals are the food for them. Women are owned by everything they think they are taken care of. Women and mothers are owned. They are enslaved. And they are in the velvet coffins. It's relatively comfortable existence until they start breaking down and are not useful anymore. And should they want to change, everyone around them keeping them enslaved will stop the change very quickly. They'll freeze you out. If you do anything to change, you will be looked down upon. Your friends and family will be asking you what's wrong with you. They'll be doing welfare checks on you. Oh yeah, women are enslaved. That's why the matriarchs own everyone under them. They call themselves the mama bears. And they could be the mother-in-laws or the grandmothers, getting their hooks into their grandchildren and into their sons and daughters, who worship the fuck out of them because that whole God complex was instilled and built into the family. So if the matriarch dies, then the new matriarch is whoever is the woman that's in that family is now head of family, and she will rule with an iron fist. Watch the grandmothers out there ruling with an iron fist. Watch the mothers out there do the same thing. That's how they're able to get away with everything, with whatever they do to people and themselves and their children. Remember who attacked me in the beginning? Was all the mama bears. And they were allowed to attack me. Oh, they were allowed to rip me apart if they could, physically. But no, they virtually ripped me apart. But that's who the system has employed to destroy, is the mama bears. Because you can't get in the way of the agenda when the family was used to nation build and then the family is used to destroy. And so when someone says, hey, maybe it's time to feel life, maybe it's time to get your life back, and you've never been exposed to pain as something to your benefit, so as long as you feed it and release the demons, then you're going to attack anyone that threatens your existence, your family's existence, and even your child's existence, even if you don't even realize that you are destroying your child and your family with all of the traditions. And so that's how they're able to get away with whatever they do to people and themselves and their children. And no one will question it unless it violates the laws. But the system will give you every access to all the FDA-approved anti-life protocols. And that could be natural remedies. That could be allopathic remedies. That could be surgeries. They're not going to get away with you applying anti-life protocols to your child, to your animal. Because that will ensure they'll come back to the system later on when that monster becomes so out of control. And the only thing left is to then just watch the monster devour that child and that human. And you're seeing it in the hospital system. Look at hospice. The monster has got out of control and devoured the person. That's how the system supports the mother in destroying herself and the family. And it's all legal. That's the Illuminati. And it's not a bad thing. That's how you build in a regulation, a life regulation process, no different than using oncology. But the end result isn't really good for the patient. It's great for the hospital system because they have millions of people taking oncology. But each individual, they're at a deficit and they're getting the short end of the stick. And not only are they suffering, but so is their family, watching them get destroyed systematically. And their friends and family support it. And it's all legal. That's the world you're choosing. That's the world you live in. And so this mama bear, she's hot too, right? Because she has all the assets. That's how she got to be pregnant and married. And now she's a mama bear, can't wait to destroy. So she's so overprotective. Don't get in the way of her destroying her children and her family. If it's anyone that's going to destroy her family, she says, it must be her, she says in not so many words. She will attack anyone who she thinks is destroying her family and her. She wants to be the one to do it. Now remember, way back in the J world, when all the mama bears and the mommy and me groups couldn't wait to get together and throw the fucking law in my face, throw the system at my face. So right there is proof how the mama bears have been weaponized against life, have been weaponized against their own family, have been weaponized against society. And they keep each other enslaved because they only circulate in whatever was told to them by a professional. When the end result is death in the medical holistic system, and the mama bears don't know shit, when they're listening to the professionals with applying the antibiotics and afraid of food, the only thing they know how to do is to just destroy and attack. And so the anti-life system made her God. They turned her into a death angel after allowing her to give life temporarily so the system can use her kids for whatever they want. That's what these women are doing. They're basically working with the government in producing people for the government to use, yes, for as far as jobs, but also to do experiments on. And these mothers allow it. Not only do they allow it, they actually promote it. And then they play experiments all over the internet. Oh, somebody recommend me a remedy for this, a remedy for that. You see it all over in the holistic groups or the anti-V groups. Oh, I have this type of condition. What do you all recommend? It's like, oh my God, you're asking Facebook to recommend an anti-life protocol? I mean, if you're going to be anti-life, at least do it with FDA-approved protocols by a doctor and let him watch and oversee. So that way you have some room to come back from if you realize that maybe this isn't working for you. When you're eliciting help from fucking Facebook and from people on your Facebook friends list to go and recommend you an anti-life protocol, no one's getting in the way of that because that's the intention. So as long as what you're doing isn't deadly and it's using allegedly FDA-approved protocols, but women are making concoctions and selling them on the internet, making their own personal concoctions and selling them to their friends and family. Anti-life concoctions. And so the anti-life system made her God. They turned her into a death angel after allowing her to give life temporarily. They also allow her to destroy after the life is not useful. by teaching her children how to self-destruct. That's the legacies these mothers leave behind when they die. And so if you plan to die someday, Mom, that's the legacy you're leaving behind. But, it's been happening. Oh, yeah, it's been happening. Doesn't mean it was right. Doesn't mean it was the only way. It just so happens that the last 3 years, we're finally waking up. Who's we? Humanity. They're waking up to all the different agendas that were once rumors and now are turning to reality. And yes, immortality or potential indefinite life is also on the table as a possibility if you're willing to redirect your intentions, mothers and women. So how did this come to be? The feminist and anti-feminist is still the enslavement of women. Women, let's hope you use your power for good. But that's all relative, right? If you're about dying someday, please don't mislead your audience by telling them you're saving them with all of your pills and powders and supplements and detoxes and surgeries. Tell them you are taking them down systematically with your FDA-approved herbal antibiotics and supplements, making it easier to pass away. Be honest with your intentions and be honest with your audience. If you're in the J world, don't ever tell them life is pain-free. Oh yeah, I released all my demons and I feel great, and then when the climate shifts, I gotta feel hives. I'm not in pain, but I feel the energy of life, but I'm not treating it. Okay? And that's the thing. You can't promise people that they're not going to not feel anything. Because in this environment, now that we're in major climate shifting all the time, instability is going to be a given. And it's going to be even more so when you have a lot more to release because you're harboring so many little demons inside. And that's right now a lot of the issues. People they have harbored so many demons inside, and now with this climate change, they can't handle the energy release. So they die in their sleep, or they contract a very fast-moving cancer, or they have other issues that they can't put their finger on. And it's not only getting in the way of their life, but they are treating it and causing them to go behind the 8 ball even more and more until there's no way to treat it. And then you're in palliative care, and then you're in hospice, if you're lucky to even be there, assuming you don't die suddenly. And so if you're in the J world, don't ever tell them life is pain-free. Releasing excessive life can be very painful, and people have a lot to release right now. Be honest. The downfall of women is their lack of integrity. Now you understand what's going on. Women have been programmed to destroy themselves and justify it through politics, through religion, and through science. And when they destroy themselves, they destroy their families. All by design. That's the depopulation agenda. No matter what your intention is, women, be honest. So where do women fit in when they finally stop feeding into the enslavement of themselves? She eventually leaves the whole notion of family. She doesn't recommend her kids have kids. She doesn't recommend her kids have a big family. She knows exactly what these kids are going to be enduring if they do have children. Because in this environment, not only will they have to deal with, their grandchildren will have to deal with predisposed issues, but they potentially could not even survive this type of climate change. She eventually leaves the family and stops catering to the desire of testosterone in both men and women. And I mean that there are women who are more testosterone than not that find the lipstick people, lesbians's. And so you see that dichotomy of still the hetero, something more aggressive than the other, mirroring the heterogeneous, but you have that type of dynamic in even same-sex relationships. And that could be male-male or female-female. And you see it. You see it. I've seen it. And then I'll name you the names like I forgot yesterday. It was G. Flip and Chriselle Strauss. Fuck. Anyways, but if you look up G. Flip and look at her girlfriend, super, super feminine. The other one is a little bit more masculine. That's the testosterone that even women cater to other women through. Okay? She's not a party girl or a groupie anymore. She's not selling sex, drugs, rock and roll, and she's not selling antibiotics or family or religion. Because now it's time for her to redefine herself. She can't be that wife anymore, because then that elicits other things that maybe she's not prepared for. I mean, when you're getting into a marriage, you better have some kind of business sense of who you're marrying and also even the sexual expectations, and then even the family expectations. And if you're marrying someone into a big family and the mother-in-law expects you to have a child, now you're the broad mare. Now you are the baby maker. And that was like Princess Diana. She was the baby maker. The Prince Charles was revered, the children were revered, but the mother was only there if she could stay in line. But if she's not happy because her husband is stepping out on her and her fairy tale life is now gone to shit, now she's just a placeholder. Yeah, well, she figured out where she ranked very quickly. And that's a lot of women out there who are enslaved by the big families, by the mother-in-laws, by the grandmothers, by all the aunts and uncles. That's the built-in surveillance society. The slavery of women was built into the 1950s and the 1960s model. Women are not free until they set themselves free, men as well. The women and men are enslaving the male. So who are you when you're not a mother and a seller of sex and drugs, pleasure and family and religion? Oh God, good question. I hope you find out before it's too late. And so then when you think about it, I was looking at who owns who, right? Because when you think about how everything is kind of going back and forth to each other, where do you find the origination? Who is the original slave owner? And then who is playing back and forth, reinforcing that slavery mentality? The system owns the mother and women who own the men and the children. And then she teaches the men and the children they own her. She teaches the men and children how to deal with her, how to interact with her. She teaches them how to keep her in line. That's how women and mothers keep themselves enslaved. Everybody owns her, and she answers to everybody, and then they answer to her. And then she answers to the government, the one who gave her power, the power to be enslaved and to enslave to begin with. When she stops working for the government, she can work with the government and free herself, because that was the model back in the 1950s and 1960s. Well, the model was 1950s was that she work for the government and make a bunch of babies, get married, play the game of happy housewife, barefoot and pregnant, let the man go and get all of his, get his education and get his social capital and all that. Let the man do whatever and she stays home and takes care of the kids. Then the 1960s was like, okay, no, we're going to now split society, and we're not going to have all society be all conservative and be everyone at home dealing with alcoholics and drug addicts because of post-World War II and domestic violence. So we're going to free the woman, but she's still going to be very sexual. So we're going to develop a woman who maybe not want to have kids and may not want to be the happy housewife, barefoot and pregnant. And yeah, she can get an education, but she will also be the sex bomb. She will be the best of everything. Not only will she be educated, but she will seduce you in bed and be the whore in the sheets and a lady in the streets. That's exactly what the men back in 1960s, not necessarily 1950s, but 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000. And it's still the enslavement of women. And so that's something that when you can finally just face what you were pigeonholed in, when you finally can face that you were forced religion down your throat, you had sex shoved down your throat, you had the family shoved down your throat, and then you had to be the one to make the decision how you're going to treat symptoms based upon what the government was telling you. And then you're tired of destroying not only animals, you're tired of destroying your children, you're tired of destroying society, you're tired of feeding into all the bullshit. Who will you be now? But then you also have to realize that, okay, the reason why you got into all those things of what the system forced you into is because you only had maybe 80 years to accomplish everything that other people have accomplished. That's why women are enslaved, because they assume they're going to die someday. And if the whole thing of fear of missing out, when you realize you don't have to die someday, you're not going to take part in all the forced milestones that are forced on women and men too. When you finally free yourself from the notion that you have to die someday and you must accomplish so many things so you can leave a legacy, when you finally release that concept of that, not only do you set yourself free, but then you're also allowed to get your life back. And you're not pressured into performing for your mother-in-law, for your father-in-law, for everyone that expects you to give up your body, mind, and spirit to them because they require you to do that in order to be a part of their life and that family. And so, we've been so afraid of 1984, George Orwell, 1984. The conspiracy world has been so afraid of that, right? Well, the conspiracy world has then turned into 1984, George Orwell. And so you see then all the really aggressive, extreme conspiracy theorists telling you, don't comply, because yes, there's going to be another frequency change in the fall. They are projecting that there's going to be lockdowns and masks. Already the TSA is prepared to be wearing masks at each of the checkpoints when you go fly. Okay. I get shit delivered to me. I don't go out there too much, so I'm not really too concerned with the mask mandate. As far as lockdown, I'm home most of the time, so I'm not worried about that either. But you see these extreme conspiracy theorists saying, don't comply, don't comply. And here's the thing. If you don't want someone to rule you and tell you what to do, like the government or anyone else, then why don't you change the way you do, change your words and say, comply if you want to. I don't run your life because I don't want the government running my life. So I won't run your life, right? Nobody runs your life. And that's the thing that I encourage all the conspiracy extremists to consider, is stop acting like something that you don't want to do to you. So when you're so afraid of the government in 1984, don't become the fucking government. Give people the choice through your fucking words. But I see people say, don't comply, I will not, fine, don't comply. You say, I will not comply. But when you say on your Facebook, don't comply, then you're acting like the government, making directives, forcing their way into your world. But the government hasn't done that, but you're doing exactly what you think the government's doing to you. So who cares what you do, right? What another person does has absolutely no bearing on me or anyone else. You have to deal with your own health issues. I have to deal with my own health issues, whatever they are. If you wear a mask, fucking awesome, good for you. If you don't wear a mask, fucking awesome, good for you. If you decide to go out during lockdown, I hope you don't get arrested if it's being enforced. It may not be. But maybe someday it might. Maybe someday when we do have 50-minute cities and they say, okay, lockdown for whatever reason, and there could be many reasons why. Is it worth allowing the system to use the law against you and justify prosecuting you and potentially even putting you in a labor camp or a re-education camp? See, I already conditioned myself to understand what's going on. And I'm not free. I'm as free as a bird. If I want to go out there, I can go out there. My husband's like, here, you can take the car. He takes the car to work. I let him take the car to work because I don't really need it. Now, if we have crazy ass storms and I know there's some shit going on, but even then, where am I going to fucking drive to? I'm in a flat area, okay? If there's water to be pooling, I mean, you can go to a higher ground, but that's a long way to go if you can do that. But then if you go to higher ground, you could be potentially risking mudslides. So at this point, I'm not worried about it. So I've conditioned myself to kind of change with the climate and not play the game of, oh, should I wear a mask or not wear a mask? Should I play that resistance game or should I not? I'm not playing the game. I'm not playing that game at all. I'm not going to be forced into that kind of decision. But if they're required to wear a mask to go into a store and that's required in that store, I will follow those directives because that's the store that I choose to shop at. I will follow whatever directives when I go into a personal place of business. But if I get delivery, that's not an issue. So if you decide to go out during lockdown, I hope you don't get arrested. If you decide not to go out during lockdown, enjoy your stay at home. Have fun, enjoy your life, do what you need to do to take care of you. And feel free to advertise what you're doing. It doesn't mean everyone else is doing what you're doing, but you are representing whatever it is you represent. And we'll get to watch what happens, right? All the repercussions of our personal choices. We face our own health issues, and we deal with our government and the justice system if we violate any laws. But represent whatever the hell you want, or don't. Okay, so I remember 3 years ago how we were all freaking out over the masks because of so many things that we were in fear of. Oh, I remember how much in fear I was back in 2020. And that was before I did all that research that I've done the last 3 years, before I even released my book, my last book. Now I'm just like, whatever. I've worn masks. I've had masks where it's so holy where I can breathe through it, because I'm not really concerned about taking in microbes. But if that's what they require, is to wear a mask, whatever form it is, then fine. But I'm not going out. And I haven't conditioned myself to always be out. But the reason why they require them is because sometimes you do catch people's microbes on top of the instability in the environment. So as the environment is so unstable and you're releasing, because there's growth that happens during the instability, and then let's say your skin releases, let's say you're sneezing, let's say you're coughing, okay, you're releasing microbes, you're releasing demons. It may not cause a major pandemic, but someone next to you could take on a microbe that they're not expecting. But if you're out in public, you're going to have to expect taking on microbes. But whatever. But that was the system's way of giving people the option. Though they did make it sound like it was mandatory. On some level, I guess it was, because of the uncertainty around it. But people have been now conditioned to deal with change and accepting cancer, disease, and chronic illness and autoimmune disorders. So the mask thing is probably not going to be, as aggressive as it was, but you see it on Facebook. But when you go out there, again, I'm not going to play that game of should I resist or should I not. I'm just going to do what I do. If I have to go out there, I will. But if I don't have to, I don't care. Okay? And so now with the way, when I finally learned that lesson around the Jell-O and the amino acids, and then realizing how the acids and the alkaline must work together, and remembering how everyone was all about alkaline, drink the alkaline water, eat the alkaline foods, don't be so acidic. That's a whole holistic world. Then I realize now how to balance out my system during this climate change. But I'm also on a purified body. Not only do I have an open system of a release process, okay, which I have outlined in my book, I eat all food, but I also understand how to balance out the acids and the alkaline, and I don't have the excessive acids in my body that would mislead my expectation. Okay, so again, when you have so many different types of acids, and they're all diverse in all the different types of food, plant acids to biological acids to elemental acids, okay, like heavy metal acids. All of those have specific composition that might be a little bit diverse, a little bit different than each other. And when we were doing the J juice in the beginning and we were doing the first waterfalls, we were releasing a lot of excessive acids and it burned, okay? And so then we realized that, then I actually recently just realized about the acids, is that you really need to balance your acids with alkaline. And so so when I had so much of that heartburn and I was throwing up acid, and I realized that I had a fire demon in my body that I had to release through my method and then also through the cabbage. Okay? And so when I said I had a bunch of acid before I took a nap, acid, I meant I had some enchilada meal, and I had some of that tomato and sun-dried spaghetti with spinach and mushrooms. Okay, that's acid. And then I took a nap yesterday because the heat was becoming pretty bad. And then when that happens, when the heat comes in, I get very fatigued. And so I take a nap for a few hours. And I wake up, and I didn't have heartburn, but I woke up like, okay, I'm probably, during your sleep, your body is producing, going through the processes. It does produce acid to break down the food. It's always good to say, okay, after that type of sleep, whether it's during the day or even at night, and you eat food, it's good to have an alkaline offset to keep the acids under control. And so I had a bunch of acid before I took a nap. The heat always puts me to sleep. I wake up from a nap eating the alkaline. So I wake up, eat a salad, which I did. I had a few salads yesterday. I had a lot of food in the, like a lot of the, not a lot, but I have the acid in the morning and the alkaline at night or the afternoon. And so I wake up from a nap eating the alkaline. It keeps everything balanced inside. That's how I'm going to play it during this climate change. That's my game plan to survive climate change in this incessant heat. You can say I'm living a vampire lifestyle, but the heat will destroy you, especially if you're not as large as other people or haven't been conditioned for many years to work in the heat. So my husband, he has been conditioned to work out here in the heat. I've been conditioned to work inside because that's what my background is academics or corporate America. Okay, I'm not a blue collar laborer. I don't work the fields, I don't work the streets, and I don't work anything outside. I use my brain and I type shit or I sell stuff, okay? And so I'm more active at night or early morning. Look, it's like 5:52 right now. I woke up around 3 and finally got up at around 4 because the freaking hives were pissing me off. Well, not really. I was just itching a lot. And so I was up around midnight last night. But I think I took a nap yesterday during the day for about 4 hours. It wasn't even a nap. It was like half asleep. Because I think I took a nap between 1 and 4. It's about 3 hours. So I'm more active at night and in the early morning. The midday, forget it, especially with the temperatures above 80. When it's above 80, oh, it's bad. And when you have to push yourself through it because of all the things, then you have to find time to relax and rest. But I've set my life up where I can take the time to rest when I need to, when it calls for it. And so I'm more active at night and in the early morning. The midday, forget it, especially with temperatures above 80 until it becomes cooler. And that is necessary for my survival with my lifestyle. All right. So there is this post in a Diet Sunlight group. And I remember back when I was anti-V and everything, trying to justify or rationalize why people were getting symptoms. Like people who were V'd, allegedly. Like that was the only reason why people would get symptoms is because they were V'd. Well, yeah, part of it, the shedding, which, okay, that's possible. Okay, but that doesn't speak to everybody. So someone said, I think a lot of people who claim to be against the juice actually drank it. I say this because I've seen so much erratic behavior, premature aging, and illness in people who claim to be against it. I think some people who hang out in alternative circles wanted their friends to think they had declined it, but the fear got to them and they secretly took it. Okay, so when you can't fathom that even the climate can cause instability and cause premature aging, erratic behavior, and illnesses, they're going to think the person lied about it. That's what they said to me when I was telling them I have all these different, symptoms and sicknesses and all these different things that are coming up for me. I've hold a lot of demons inside that I had to release. They had to immediately assume that I took the V. They could not fathom that the climate and the instability of the climate change and the heat brought that up. They could not fathom that. And that's what you're going to see in these anti-V groups. They're not going to even factor in the climate change because they spent 20 years blaming the V's. And they hadn't really thought about the cold and flu season and spring allergy season as a major catalyst to disease. And then I realized that when they treat the disease, it then causes a monster to accumulate and then one day rear its ugly head. And so I said, people can't fathom climate change and frequencies are waking up people's immune systems. They can't fathom that. They have to blame it on the public therapies. I mean, yeah, if you are one of those that are so adverse to anything that's new and much less a freaking pinprick, well, you would be deemed then inappropriate for any public health therapy. It would be up to the doctor to decide that. So when you think about people who should have a working immune system, allegedly, well, their immune system is working when they have the symptoms. Their immune system is working when they have the symptoms. But these anti-V people disable their immune system with all the different treatments and remedies. When I didn't think about the climate change as other factors, I also was trying to figure out how are people dying with all the different symptoms. Then it was catching other people's microbes, which could be a factor, which is why they ask people to wear masks. But that's not the only factor. The aggressive fluctuations in the heat, the intense fluctuations of becoming hot has produced growth in me. Then I have to eat and release demons and itch. Other people get different symptoms, like my husband getting back pain when that frequency changed, and I woke up with hives, he woke up with back pain. We were in the same bed. And so some people will get cancer. Some people will not survive climate change. And it could be an aggressive change in October. There'll be people that will die in October when there's that aggressive climate change that they're warning you about. When there's a shift in the climate of getting hotter, I get hives in different places now. That's my indicator. There was a change, and now the body is releasing. It is through the largest organ called the skin. If I were to get this treated, I would have had bigger problems later on because a monster would have developed inside of me. Whenever you don't allow your body to release through symptoms, especially during this crazy climate change, premature aging, cancer, disease, chronic illness, autoimmune disorders, and even death. And just to be clear, I've had no public therapy. I haven't had a public therapy since 2000 when I was in the military. And so what is urticaria, viral or bacteria? In fact, viral infections cause more than 80% of all the cases of acute hives in children, as well as adults. A variety of viruses can cause hives, even routine cold viruses. The hives seem to appear as the immune system begins to clear the infection, sometimes 1 week or more after the illness begins. Okay, so, hey, I don't have a stuffy nose. You haven't heard anything respiratory in me since a couple years ago. You have not heard me sound like I'm holding on to so much mucus. You may have heard a little bit because of things going on in the last few months. But you haven't heard me cough and sneeze to such an extent where it's a continuous chronic cough or a continuous stuffy nose. Because I have opened up my immune system and released the demons. And my skin is the fastest way the system can release the demons, along with pooping and peeing and sweating or whatever. So I remember people saying back in the beginning of the JJ world, they had histamine issues from the cabbage, not even just from the salt, but from the cabbage, because they're allergic to cabbage. Why are they allergic to cabbage? Because they can't handle the immune system triggering. Allergies is the immune system triggering, trying to release the excessive demons. Okay? What are demons? The excessive acids that are housed and trapped in the body because of your practices in the medical holistic world. That's because you're supposed to trigger your immune system. You have an intolerance to using your immune system properly. The cabbage was a catalyst that needed to help your body release the demons. And it wasn't even the JJ per se. It was the actual cabbage people were having an issue with. Some people. My mother used to give me antihistamines to stop the body from releasing during spring and cold flu allergy season. And now girls are giving their kids elderberry syrup. That's the worst thing you can do to a child is to disable their immune system through the holistic world. Maybe now if you're willing to look, you know better. Every parent makes fatal mistakes with their children when it comes to symptoms. And it's not their fault. They were told to do that. They were just following orders. But I'm saying break the habit. Histamine is your friend. Histamine, a chemical found in some of the body's cells, causes many of the symptoms of allergies, such as runny nose or sneezing. You heard me sneeze a few times. When a person is allergic to a particular substance, such as a food or dust, the immune system mistakenly believes that this usually harmless substance is actually harmful to the body. Mistakenly? No, that's your immune system releasing. Mistakenly? That's how fucked up the medical system is. When you sneeze, your body is supposed to sneeze, or it wouldn't fucking sneeze. That's a foreign antigen. That's something that is going to harm the body at some point when it metastasizes. That's how fucked up the medical holistic system is when they say mistakenly believes. The immune system doesn't make a mistake. Man has an intention to disable the immune system through their remedies. Okay? Wow. I read that. Oh my God. Wow. Mistakenly. Okay. That's how people get fucking snowed by the medical system and the holistic system. So I said that my scar was itching. Now see, this has gone down a little bit, but there is, you see right there? That's not a bug bite. That's histamine. So my scar is itching. It itched when I woke up this morning. That bump underneath my scar is all over my back. That's urticaria. I looked at my back in the mirror after I took a shower. I'm like, Jesus Christ, it looks like I have a bunch of welts on me. I use nothing on it. I just take a shower and that's about it. Okay? If you don't get any skin conditions during this climate change, you're holding those buggers inside of you. You're holding some aggressive energy inside of you. The skin is the largest organ and it's supposed to release the demons. If you're not releasing it or at least through your skin and you have a relatively closed alimentary canal, even if you have an open system, your skin is the easiest exit point for the demons to leave. Your immune system should be pushing them out. So you're harboring the Garden of Eden within. Okay? And so, if I can be any more clear, you got to be able to allow your immune system to release. And you have to feed that energy of release as well, because you got to give your immune system the fuel for the ability for it to work properly. That's the reason why all the public health therapies are there, because people are in such deficit. They're starving. And they have so many allergies and so many diseases. That's the only thing that's going to potentially help them develop antibodies. That was the public health therapy's intention, was to help you develop antibodies. And people say, oh, I have an immune system. No, you've disabled it through the medical, holistic, energy healing world. You have disabled it through all the remedies. If you had an immune system, you wouldn't be using the fucking holistic system. You wouldn't be using the medical system. Yeah, everybody has an immune system, but it ain't working to your benefit, or you wouldn't be needing all the different things to stop the body. Your immune system is the symptoms. Your immune system is the histamine. Your immune system gets triggered by everything, whether it's the air, food, and water. And you allow it to trigger because it needs to, and you feed the energy, and you rest, and you take a backseat to all your bullshit out there, all your social capital, or else one day that monster is going to destroy you when all the conditions are right. And that is what's happening. That's the died suddenly. When people disable their immune system through so many different venues, and then they wonder why their kids don't survive a simple fucking cold. They wonder why their kids have to go through surgeries. They wonder why their family is not surviving, why there's two brothers or a sister and a brother in the same year dying from the same fucking disease, because they share DNA, they share predisposed issues, and they share their traditions of treating symptoms. And their body supernovaed, self-imploded. They could not handle all that energy trapped inside the body. And so yes, mothers will destroy her family, her community, and women will do that too, unless she wakes the fuck up and realizes she was used as a tool. She was used as a tool. When women realize how powerful they really are, and they stop allowing other women to destroy them and to teach destruction, when women and mothers finally wake the fuck up, but most will not, they could potentially save themselves and their family. But you will see on Facebook, just watch your Facebook, most mothers will not ever change. And that was intentional. That was bred into them since the 1920s. Okay? I couldn't even blame really the 1960s, because the objectification of women and girls happened in the 1900s, 1920s. It happened in Shirley Temple's years of her in the movies when she was a baby. So this happened way before your grandma's time, your time, whatever. And so maybe it's time for some women who have the ability to evolve and change to finally save herself She may not be able to save her kids and her family because she's under surveillance by all of her friends and family in her community. But she could probably save herself. Assuming that she even understands this. She may not even conceptually comprehend where the fuck I'm coming from. And so, yeah. That's kind of the situation we're in. So that's why I'm saying the feminist, anti-feminist binary argument still enslaves women. Women still submit to the testosterone out there. Women still develop anti-life protocols. They still buy into the social capital and the sexuality. And so when you have to sell religion, when you have to sell sex, when you have to sell antibiotics, you have no intention of ever evolving. You're going to be a slave to somebody's expectations. And you'll have a very hard time defining who you are because you are not a person to most people. You are a mother, you are a wife, you are a sexual bomb, you are a religious figure. You've been used as a fucking tool. And until you realize that, there's no evolution. That's the depopulation agenda when women don't even know who they are. They are their religion, they are their sex, and they are their antibiotics. And that's it. And their children and everyone around them will use them. And so will the government until she wakes the fuck up. Bye.